So, welcome back to my channel where I geek out about all things metal. I hope that you guys have had a really nice week so far. This is my monthly favourites essentially, so I kind of decided to put together a video where I try and shine a little bit of light on some of the albums that I may have missed, but also records that I think really deserve your time, but because I was just a little bit too busy I couldn't feature them, but still wanted to in some capacity. Video Nasties combine two of my favourite things in the world, which is horror and metal. So the band have got this kind of skeleton witch come the Black Dahlia murder style sound, which is very melodic death metal focused, but most importantly has that injection of fun, I think, that is sometimes missing. You know, you could see yourself like crowd surfing over this sort of stuff. And I really like the fact that they've implemented so many B-movie horror sound clips in there, but also the overall sound of the band just kind of oozes that John Carpenter feel of the 80s. Secondly is White Stones with their debut album Quarahi. Now, they pretty much pick up where Opeth left off in the fact that the band's sort of founding member is Martin Mendez, who's the bassist of Opeth currently. Now, the idea behind the album's title is an ode to his Uruguayan upbringing. It's death metal, but in no way is it too similar to Opeth, and I think that's great because it allows it to be differential enough to stand on its own 2 feet. There's also some sections which did remind me a little bit of Voivod, but this is really quite interesting progressive death metal. In terms of guitars, Martin Mendez tracked all of the guitars and bass himself, save for the leads where he had some help from Fredrik Åkesson of Opeth and Per Eriksson of Bloodbath on the single The One. It's definitely a dark horse and one that I sadly kind of missed out on, but really now I'm listening to it, it deserves all of your attention. Now, Sweven, The Eternal Resonance. This was definitely kind of one that blindsided me when I kind of listened to it. Now, they're sort of formed of the ashes of Morbus Chron, who, if you know, their final album was also called Sweven. So it's essentially the main composer from that band who has come out with this album that's just huge. It's expansive. There's so much kind of detail in there. But in terms of sound, for me, it kind of reminded me of Tribulation meets Horrendous, but in this quite progressive arena. And there's also a sense of that kind of doominess that was on Triptychon and things like that. But it's definitely going to be very high on my end of year list. And I think it's because it has just so much scope and does kind of like, you know, sweep you away in its world, which I think is absolutely tremendous. I can't recommend this album enough. I've just ordered it on vinyl. Definitely check this band out. Now, this was pretty much of a sudden announcement and literally I think was last week, dropped from the sky, but 9 Inch Nails released their double album, which is Ghosts 5 and 6. And the idea behind this is, you know, during this kind of pretty crazy time that we're in, they want to represent the idea of duality. So in this double album, you've got Ghost 5, which represents a more positive kind of outlook, and then Ghost 6, which is more ominous and a little bit more bleak, let's just say. A lot more bleak. So the album is completely instrumental, and I think it's really interesting given the current climate that 9 Inch Nails are doing something like this. It's also my first foray into 9 Inch Nails, so if you have any recommendations, please do drop them in a comment down below. But from what I can hear, I really love it, and I think that the atmosphere on this record is really, really strong. And if you have a spare 3 hours, you can listen to the entire thing. There's a lot of music. But yeah, highly recommended. So if you guys aren't familiar, Jonathan Hultén is one of the guitarists in Tribulation. Now, Tribulation are a band, if you're not familiar with them, that kind of combine this sort of 70s prog rock with black metal, let's just say. And Jonathan Hultén's solo album is very different on that front. It's got a lot more Americana themes, there's acoustic sections on there, there's a lot of Celtic stuff, but there is also a dash of prog. But most importantly, I think, is it's really his pitch to have him put forward his voice, because he's got such an amazing voice on this record. It's very ethereal sounding, and there's even some like throat singing that he sort of tries out on this record. There's lots of different angles that you wouldn't necessarily expect to see as well, which I really enjoyed. So in terms of like, if you're a Tribulation fan, this is definitely not one to miss, because there's so many hidden gems in Jonathan Hultén's creativity that really need to be kind of pushed to the fore. And I hope that Tribulation do this on the next record. Now, this has been an album that's been on rotation forever, but I really like its kind of sense of pace, and it sort of trudges along, but then out of nowhere you'll have this amazing melody. I mean, the best way I could describe it is almost like it combines Paradise Lost meets Carcass, and they're being released via 20 Buck Spin, which, if you're not familiar with them, are a fantastic death metal record company. Definitely check this one out. It's straightforward death metal, but it does it so well from this Finnish band. There's black metal and death metal influences plenty on this record, but there's a lot of Boss HM2 kind of worship. That sound is really buzzsaw and really does kind of hit your face hard. There are some curveballs on this record, for example, on the Cape of Storms, where it just kind of goes into this weird blues interlude, which I thought was really cool, and especially hearing a blues style riff on an HM2 pedal kind of sound is just really wicked. Now, this is their first album, and for me, in terms of what they sound like, it reminds me almost as if Black Peaks met Gojira with a sense of Sepultura and almost a little bit of Letters from the Colony, which I don't know if you guys know, but they're an absolutely brilliant band. The band are very much rhythmically focused and almost reminds me of a crossover between Fear Factory meets Textures, both in vocals and the instruments themselves, but they're definitely worth your time. I haven't really had time to really kind of let the album sink in as much as I want, but I'm definitely going to be revisiting this record. So last week, Profound Law announced the pre-order was starting for Old Man Gloom's brand new album, Seminar 8, Light of Meaning. That's great, everyone was really excited, and then out of nowhere, and this is what I love about Old Man Gloom, is that knowing the kind of situation of what everyone is thinking at the minute, they thought, you know what, why don't we just give back to our fans? And they released this album just out of the sky, which is the next part, which is Seminar 9, Darkness of Being. And it's a really great Old Man Gloom record. It's got all of the classic tropes, there's loads of feedback, huge riffs, some cool, interesting acoustic parts actually. But what I love the most about it is that it was the band just being like, here's our music. But yeah, that's my March favourites. Let me know what you think in the comments. So I hope I've shed a little bit of light over those new releases that might have eluded you or, you know, helped you discover a new band. If I have, it would be amazing if you could like and subscribe to my videos. Please do let me know if there's anything you'd like to see from me and drop a comment underneath. Be safe out there, and I'll see you guys very soon.